Imagine sitting in a doctor's office. You're nervous, but you feel safe. The man across from you wears a stethoscope, a white coat, a calm smile. He asks about your health, your pain, your worries. His voice is steady, his handwriting neat. When he says you'll be all right, you believe him, because that's what we do. We trust doctors. We trust them with our bodies, our secrets, our lives. Now, imagine that same doctor quietly deciding you won't leave alive, that he will choose the moment your life ends, not with anger, not with shouting, but with a syringe, a small push of a plunger, and silence. This is not fiction. This is not legend. This is the true story of Harold Shipman, the soft-spoken family doctor who became the most prolific serial killer in modern history. A man who murdered not 10, not 50, but over 200 of his own patients. Ordinary people who thought they were safe in his care. How could one man kill more than 200 people and no one notice? How does a profession built on compassion conceal such darkness? And how does society rebuild trust when the very symbol of healing becomes the face of death? Stay with me through this story, because what you'll discover is more than the tale of one man's crimes. It's a warning about power, trust, and how evil hides in plain sight. And if you want more stories like this, true stories that stay with you, that you can't look away from, make sure to subscribe. It helps me uncover the hidden truths the world would rather forget.
Veil. Let's remove the veil.
Harold Frederick Shipman was born on January 14, 1946, in Nottingham, England. He was the second of 4 children, raised in a working-class family. His father was a lorry driver, his mother a homemaker. At first glance, nothing about his childhood seemed unusual. But those who knew him remember a boy who was quiet, reserved, and above all, obedient. The defining figure in his life was his mother, Vera. She was protective, strict, and held Harold closer than the others. Some described her as controlling, the type of parent that demanded perfection. And Harold, eager to please, desperate for approval, gave it. He became the clever child, the favorite. But when Harold was still a teenager, tragedy entered their household. His mother developed lung cancer. The illness consumed her quickly, and Harold, just 16, watched helplessly as she grew weaker, confined to bed. It was here that something shifted inside him. Her doctor administered regular morphine injections to ease her pain, and Harold saw something extraordinary. After each injection, his mother seemed calmer. Her pain vanished, her breathing slowed, and for a brief moment, she looked peaceful again. Then the relief faded, the suffering returned, and another injection followed. For Harold, it was more than medical treatment. It was magic. He saw that a needle held power over life and death. He saw that doctors could not just heal, but control. And when his mother died, he was left with grief, and with an idea he would never let go of. Shipman's determination hardened. He excelled academically, went to medical school, and by the 1970s was practicing as a young doctor. He married, had children, built the image of a respectable man, but cracks were already showing. At Pontefract General Infirmary in West Yorkshire, colleagues began noticing something strange. Shipman was prescribing massive quantities of a powerful drug called pethidine, an opioid similar to morphine. The numbers didn't add up. Soon it was revealed that he wasn't giving the drugs to patients at all. He was forging prescriptions and using them himself. Caught red-handed, he was fined, briefly sent to rehab, and put under monitoring. But here's the shocking part. After just a short suspension, he was allowed to continue practicing medicine. A doctor, proven dishonest, addicted to narcotics, placed right back into a position of absolute trust. That decision, that act of leniency, would echo across decades, leading to hundreds of preventable deaths. By the 1980s, Harold Shipman had settled in the town of Hyde, Manchester, Greater Manchester. He opened a small practice, serving mostly working-class families and elderly patients. On the surface, he was everything you wanted in a doctor. Calm, reliable, never too rushed. Patients said he had a quiet authority, a presence that reassured. In towns like Hyde, the local GP isn't just a doctor. He's part of the community. He sees you at the supermarket, waves to you in the street, treats your parents and your children. That familiarity builds trust, and Shipman used it like armor. But soon, people began dying. At first, no one thought twice. After all, many were elderly, already frail. Their deaths seemed natural. What no one saw was the pattern. The number of deaths under Shipman's care was abnormally high. Many were discovered sitting upright in chairs, as though they had simply dozed off. Their end was always sudden, always quiet, and Shipman was always there. He signed the death certificates, he comforted the families, he explained it away with medical authority. And because he was the doctor, people believed him.
But why? Why did he do it? Some argue he was reenacting the power he saw as a boy, the moment his mother's pain dissolved under morphine. Others think it was about dominance, a god complex. To Shipman, his patients weren't people. They were subjects, lives to be ended at his choosing. He played the role of savior to their faces and executioner behind closed doors. And it wasn't just murder. Shipman also manipulated the aftermath. He altered medical records, forged notes to make deaths look expected, and in at least one case, even rewrote a patient's will to leave him money. If this story shocks you, take a moment to subscribe. Because what we're uncovering isn't just a story about the past. It's a reminder that blind trust can be deadly. By the mid-1990s, some people in Hyde had begun whispering. Families noticed how often their loved ones died suddenly after visits from Shipman. Funeral homes quietly wondered why he had so many cases. A few doctors raised eyebrows at his high patient death rates. But suspicion is not proof, and Shipman had built his life around seeming ordinary. Without hard evidence, doubts faded away. That changed in June 1998. A woman named Kathleen Grundy, 81 years old, wealthy, well-known in Hyde, was found dead at home. Shipman was the last to see her alive, and he quickly signed off the death certificate. Her family grieved, until they discovered something strange. Kathleen's will had been altered. Instead of leaving her estate to her children and grandchildren, it now named one sole beneficiary, Dr. Harold Shipman. Her daughter, a lawyer, knew something was wrong. She went to the police. Kathleen's body was exhumed and the results were clear. A lethal dose of diamorphine. The mask had slipped. Investigators dug deeper. They looked at medical records, death certificates, and exhumed other bodies. The scale was overwhelming. Case after case showed the same pattern. Sudden death, morphine overdose, Shipman's name. The final estimate? At least 215 murders. Possibly as many as 250. It was almost unimaginable. The numbers were so high, some refused to believe it. But the evidence spoke for itself. In September 1998, Harold Shipman was arrested. His trial began in 1999, and the stories poured out. Families sat in court hearing how their mothers, fathers, and grandparents had been betrayed. Experts explained how he falsified records. Prosecutors revealed his arrogance, his coldness. In January 2000, Shipman was convicted of 15 murders and sentenced to life in prison. The judge declared he should never be released. But that wasn't the end. A public inquiry followed, led by Dame Janet Smith. Over months of testimony, it painted a devastating picture. Shipman had likely killed more than 200 people. He had exploited weaknesses in the death certification system, manipulated records, and taken advantage of society's unquestioning trust in doctors. And yet, he never confessed, never explained, never showed remorse. He sat through his trial, through prison, with an air of detachment. In 2004, 4 years into a sentence, Harold Shipman hung himself in his cell. To some, it was closure. To others, it was another betrayal. His final escape from facing the families whose lives he had destroyed. But the question still lingers. Why? Why did Harold Shipman kill? Was it revenge for his mother's death? A twisted repetition of her morphine injections? Was it the thrill of control? Or was it something darker? Something impossible to untangle? We may never know, and that may be the most frightening part. Because Harold Shipman doesn't look like a monster in the stories. He doesn't look like the killer in the shadows, the stranger in the alley. He looks like your doctor, the person you trust most. And that's what made him so dangerous. If you've stayed with me through this story, thank you. Remember, this isn't just about Harold Shipman. It's about the people he took. The mothers, the fathers, the grandparents who deserved more time, who deserved care, not betrayal. If you want more documentaries like this, the kind of stories that force us to question the world we live in, subscribe now. Share this video so others remember too. Because forgetting makes us vulnerable. Evil doesn't always wear a mask. Sometimes it wears a white coat and carries a stethoscope. And sometimes the people we trust the most are the ones we should fear the most.